everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and welcome back to another Powerpuff Girls edition of Primetime Crisis. Today we're talking about Puffdora's box, and this one I was not real thrilled with. It's kind of what I'm starting to gather is going to be a typical episode of this series, and as I've said before, I felt like the first few episodes were kind of trying to ease us into this new format. They felt a little bit more like the format of the original Powerpuff Girls, a little bit more of that frantic pacing and the really random, absurd humor, and we're starting to kind of get away from that. It's starting to feel more and more sitcom-y, still with some of that absurdity, still with a lot of the Powerpuff Girl tropes, a lot of monsters, more monsters so far than supervillains. That's a thing that the original series didn't have really. I mean, there were, don't get me wrong, lots and lots of monsters, and if you didn't have a regular straight-up supervillain, you'd have a big monster fight, but this series seems to be kind of all about the monsters. And if this is moving forward what this show is gonna be week to week, I mean, the last 3 episodes in a row have been just okay to I don't really care for. Really didn't like this one, and it had a couple of moments, but like the last 2 had some like really funny laugh out loud things for me, and this one feels like it's just not for me at all. I feel like the juxtaposition of the high octane superhero parody show to the cute factor is kind of gone, and it's kind of just all cute factor, and it seems to be aimed at a demographic that I'm not falling into, and I'm not saying that it's just for little girls necessarily, but it seems to be just not for me anymore, not for the Powerpuff Girl fans that grew up with the original show, and it's much more taking a thing that people are familiar with, that brand recognition, and making it feel like a lot of the other Cartoon Network shows in its pacing and in its humor and sensibilities, and I don't love that. I was cool with bringing some of that to it in maybe having a Powerpuff Girls show that was archy, and I was excited about that potentially. I mean, like, I'm open-minded. I've been liking this show more than a lot of people I've been talking to. People seem to be really down on it for the most part, especially the huge fans of the original, and I've been one of the big proponents for it up until the last couple weeks, and this one especially. I'm starting to I feel like maybe I'm seeing the writing on the wall, and this is what the show is going to be moving forward, and if so, I'm afraid it's going to lose me. As I said, I'm open-minded. I like the new characterization for Buttercup a lot. I really like how dry and deadpan she is. The sarcasm is fantastic. I even like her and Bubbles' camaraderie, and Blossom as kind of the outlier. Like, she's supposed to be the leader of the team, but she doesn't fit in as well with the other two because they're more laid back, and the show is finding those things that are inherently, that Buttercup and Blossom inherently, or I'm sorry, Buttercup and Bubbles inherently have in common over Blossom. So some of the character dynamics are more complex than they were in the original series, and we're mining that, and that's really cool, but I'm just not enjoying it as much as I was those first few episodes. I'm gonna stay with it for a while and see how it goes, but I'm afraid it's gonna lose me. In this one, the Powerpuff Girls are told by the professor that they have to organize their stuff and get rid of what they don't want, and I'm as we've been doing with Blossom, it's all about her anal retentiveness and her closed-mindedness and her inability to do things any way other than her own, and so it's another lesson-y episode, as all of these really have been to some degree, where Blossom has to learn to work with the others, and the difference between being a leader and being controlled and not being able to listen to other ideas. And so she has this 19-point plan. That was the one thing that I did think was really, really funny and made me laugh out loud, where she has this PowerPoint, and she has this whole big complicated plan, overly exorbitantly complicated plan in how to organize all their stuff. And Bubbles says what the audience is thinking, which is, did you just now make that? And that's the kind of absurdity I sort of expect from the show, and that was fun. But anyway, so the professor has a pile of dangerous science stuff that he tells the girls not to mess with, and when Buttercup says, fine, if you're not going to listen to us, we'll go off and watch old 70s space tow truck. That was the other thing that was kind of fun. You're gonna why don't you just do it all by yourself? And she says, fine. Sometimes you have to do things, sometimes if other people can't do things the way you want them to, you have to do things yourself. And so she starts organizing things her way, and then she has to deal with these monsters that seem to be kind of maybe from some nether region or something. It seems very mystical, and I don't know how they wound up in the professor's science pile at first, and I don't think there's really any explanation about it. If I missed it, let me know. I just watched this once, but they seem to... At first I thought that they were maybe like chemical monsters, but then the way you get rid of them is you have them say something in Greek, and it's ta lame, which is see you later in Greek, and it's very mixelplick, and so and the person who knows that is this other kind of celestial creature that comes out of what is, and where the episode title comes from, what looks like kind of Pandora's box, except it's a good thing that she unlocked. She unlocked a bad thing with the monsters, but then she opens up this box, and the cure comes out, which is Hope, and a character named Hope, which of course is Hope, which is that very cliche thing. And she just goes out and wants to jump on a trampoline. And all of this is supposed to be funny, and it didn't really land with me. So I guess we're starting to venture into a kind of humor that just doesn't get me. And humor, of course, is a very subjective thing. So I'm sure there's folks that will find this very amusing, and that just didn't do anything for me at all. So she goes out on a trampoline, and she refuses to come back inside, and she keeps jumping. But Bubbles, when Blossom finally decides to actually work with the girls again because she's desperate, Bubbles goes out and is able to get her to explain how to get rid of the monsters, and she gives them Latame or Talame, and then Blossom has a rap, a call and answer rap, where she's able to get them to say it back to her, and then they all disappear, and then Blossom has learned her lesson. What I'm hoping is that each of these lessons that the girls are learning in each episode is actually something that they hang on to, and that we have real character progression. So the next episode, if these are supposed to be happening in the order in which we're watching them, in the next episode, she should be a little bit more mellow now. She should be, or at least she should be reminded by the girls, hey, remember last time when you didn't listen to us and you didn't try things other ways and you were really controlling, remember what happened. And I'm hoping that we don't keep everybody stagnant, and that we actually have real character progression like we have in some of the other Cartoon Network shows recently, because that's, again, the thing that really should be brought to this, I think, if it's going to be more sitcom-y and it's going to be more story-driven as opposed to just absurd comedy driven like the old show was, where they were very they were very archetypal and kind of sort of one note and didn't change a lot, and the episodes weren't about their having a progression over time. But if everything is lessony like this, they need to evolve, and I'd love to see what the evolution of these characters are. I'm a little bit afraid though that they are going to kind of have their one or two permeating character traits and the prevailing character traits, and that they're going to learn lessons that that we keep kind of regressing. Like I said, the space tow truck thing continues to be funny. I'm afraid that might start becoming a crutch after a while, where it's like every time you say space tow truck, you're supposed to laugh. But there's kind of a new thing brought to that that I think is funny, which is this is apparently a show that has been rebooted, and it's sort of like Star Trek, where it started decades ago, and now there's this much hipper version of it, but in the the old days, it was this thing that was kind of for your parents that you're not going to understand because you didn't grow up when they did. And so the space tow truck was this really bizarre thing in the 70s that looked like people had to have been on drugs when they made it, and it's very trippy, and they have this thing where, like, the tow truck turns into a butterfly, and then everybody's dancing disco, and Buttercup's really disappointed, and she was really excited to see the original space tow truck, and now she's like, what is this? I don't know what I'm looking at. It's really incomprehensible. So I thought that was kind of funny. Let me look at my notes and see if there's anything else that I thought was really great that I wanted to mention. Not really. Those were kind of the big ones. Like I said, this one didn't really do it for me. So we'll see what it's like next week. Leave your comments. Let me know what you think. If you've been liking the show, are you still loving it? Are you still where you were before, or is it starting to lose you a little bit like it is me? And if you haven't been really digging the show, but you're holding out, how do you feel about it now? And versus the first few weeks, and is it the same thing to you? Leave your comments, let me know, and in the meantime, I'll see you again next time on Primetime Crisis. I'm Captain Logan, and thanks a lot for watching.